Yo, what's going on guys, it's Rest, and about a week ago I actually made a build video going over a community themed build, and I said I was going to turn this into a brand new series on the channel, and no, I have not forgotten about it, and that is what this video is going to be all about today. I'm going to be going over a build that I'm calling Dragon's Breath Amara. Now just like in my previous video, like I said, these community based builds are builds that you guys come up with and you're going to get full credit for them. The amount of support that I actually got on my previous video was absolutely insane. The amount of suggestions and things I got asked to put together has just been mind-blowing, and obviously I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, but I'm going to try to pick out some of the craziest and coolest ones I've seen and put them into a video. So for this one, we got a comment from Berserk saying, dude, please make an Amara 500% elemental crit build. I've been waiting for someone to do that since the cartel event dropped. Now if you don't know, this is just a specific anoint that when you get crit, it's going to create a nova based on what your elemental status effect is doing, but there are ways you can actually make this very, very useful. And if we actually take a look at the next comment, Labohang Sashabella actually comments with a full guide on how to actually make this work. Now if you guys want to read that, you can go check out both their comments and be sure to show them some love, because this is actually a very, very cool build and I would highly recommend trying to play this. Now also on top of both of those comments, I've received a lot of comments talking about how people just want a incendiary Amara build, pure incendiary. So this one also has you covered. If you don't know, Dragon's Breath is based on fire, so this is pure incendiary, and if you want to burn all your enemies to a crisp, meanwhile also having the ability to one-shot almost anything in the game with these elemental crits, this is 100% going to be the build for you. Like I said, shout out to both Berserk and Labohang for suggesting this and allowing me to put this together, because this is a build I would highly recommend trying out if you want to try something different on Amara. But as always, my builds are located in my Discord channel. If you would like to download them, the link for the Discord will be in the description. If you're down to build and enjoy the video, find it helpful in any way, consider subscribing and dropping a like. It's free, it really helps me out, and I truly appreciate it. But with all that, let's get right into this build. Alright, so as you see here, we have our very fire themed Amara going on. We have pretty much all incendiary weapons. The only thing we don't have is just a normal Psycho Stabber and a Cryo Fish Slap. The reason I like to run just a different element is because if you come across an immune fire target, even though with one of the skills we're taking, you're not going to be able to do damage to them. So having a Fish Slap with Cryo or just any other thing to have access to kill these immune enemies is very, very nice, since we are strictly focusing on one element. We're strictly focusing on one element because of the anoints that we have on these weapons. So if you don't know, the way this anoint is going to work is it says elemental critical hits can cause status effects of that element to explode, creating a nova that deals 500% of the status effects damage. So basically it's taking your status effect damage, and if you get a crit, you're going to do 500% of that damage in an explosion. So the way we're going to make our status effects do a lot is the Unleash the Dragon artifact right here. If you don't know what this does, whenever you melee ground slam or even slot it to an enemy, it's going to apply a burn effect to them. This is also giving you more melee damage and more incendiary damage, but this burn that actually applies to this is insanely strong, especially on somebody like Amara. Then if you pair that with something like the Psycho Stabber, it's based off your melee damage. So since this gives you the most melee damage and this has a 390 anoint, once you first apply that dot is going to do millions and millions of damage. It is ridiculous. You don't even have to play the aspect of the build where you are getting crits with this to make them blow up. You can simply just stab people with this thing and melt them if you want to, if you want to go for that pure incendiary build I was talking about. This is very, very good, and it will melt so many enemies in this game. Now, for the weapons though, I have a companion, a Ripper, and a Hellwalker. These are the things I find the most fun, and they are incendiary since you have to focus on the incendiary dot. Hellwalker, we all know obviously is really good. You can run up and just punch an enemy, then aim down sight, crit. It's going to pretty much instantly kill everything in the game. So the other gun I have is the Ripper right here, which can actually be pretty fun. So whenever you go to melee enemy to apply the Unleash the Dragon dot, you're also going to apply the Ripper dot, which is going to debuff them and make your Ripper do a lot of damage as well. So you could just stab an enemy and you're just going to obliterate them if you're hitting headshots. Then the companion, this is going to make it so every time you actually crit an enemy, you're going to ignite them. This just also works really, really well. It's a very heavily themed focus weapon for this build, and you can do a lot of damage with this thing, especially paired with the Unleash the Dragon artifact. Other things to help this out are things like the Phase Zerker. This is going to help you get your action skill back. As you see, we have more weapon damage, Jacob's crit damage, and action skill cooldown rate. You're really mainly using this to put some points in anima, and on top of that, you're going to be able to get your action skill back. The action skill plays a huge focus in this because you need to apply that dot, and one of the main ways we're going to be applying it is through the Stinger shield. So this is for your bossing and everything. This is actually when you pop your axe skill, if you have the right anoint on it, on axe to start, activate any effects that trigger on shield breaker field, this is going to release a melee nova that will apply the dot to everything around you. And if you're just fighting normal enemies, it's going to one-shot everything. So that's another outlet of this build that's letting you do a lot of damage. Instead of just having to constantly hit crits with this, you can just burn enemies to death. You can blow enemies up if you want to. You can apply burns everywhere and then hit all your crits to blow everybody up. However you want to do it. This is, like I said, this is a very, very heavy incendiary focus build. So this is also, like I said, going to allow you to apply dots to bosses. So if you use something like phase cast to go into a boss fight, apply the dot to them. It's probably not going to insta kill some of the bosses. Some bosses it will just kill outright the dot damage, but then you could swap over to something like the companion, get a crit, and then boom, the boss is going to die or be very, very low, and you could just keep repeating it over and over again. Now, like I was already talking about the fish slap, this is just a grenade that gives you melee damage, which is nice if you ever come across a fire immune target. This is just going to be very, very good for that. And as you see, we also have an axe gun. You get 50% bonus incendiary damage, which also stacks with literally everything else I was just going over. And I hope that's a pretty TLDR explanation of how this is actually working. So again, basically we're just using to unleash the dragon to apply a dot, which in return is gonna buff this anoint like crazy, and you could just do a lot of damage if you hit crits. But on top of that, if you don't want to even worry about this anoint, you have things like the stinger that's also going to kill people when you release the nova, and if you just want to use the psycho stabber to melt people to death, you can as well. Now, to make this even stronger, we're going to go over into the skills, and I'm going to start in Fist of Elements because I'm putting 5 points in anima and I have 5 with the class mod. Now, you do not need 5 points in this class mod, but if you do, you're going to get more static damage, iteration, and axial static damage. And you already know we're going to be taking incendiary to buff all our incendiary damage even more. So this is going to let that dot do just a dumb amount of damage, which is very, very nice. And 3 points also instead of hands to get down towards the bottom. 5 in Tempest, so we can buff all our elemental damage. 1 point in Illuminated Fist, so we buff our melee damage even more, and we can convert our melee damage to whatever our element is. So Soulfire, incendiary damage. This is going to buff the whole entire build as well. 1 point in Dread, so we get more damage, and our guns reloaded if we ever phase grasp an enemy. This is again to kind of just get towards the bottom. Since the stinger itself is going to be doing most of the damage if you phase grasp an enemy, you're never actually going to even really need that gun damage, but it does help out if you ever want to try to, I gotta shoot your weapons. 1 point deep well, so we get 20% more magazine size with all our elemental weapons, which is very, very nice. 1 point catharsis, so whenever we kill an enemy, this enemy is going to blow up and do a lot of damage to other enemies. 3 points indiscriminate, so all our bullets can ricochet. Very, very good for ad clear. And 1 point in sustainment, so we get 4% lifesteal based on whatever our elemental gun damage we're doing. So the reason I'm just using the normal phase grass is because it has the lowest cooldown. If you want to run something like Taz, so the Nova can easily kill everybody, you can, but honestly, the Nova itself you don't even really need Taz for it to work. So just running normal phase grass to have a fast cooldown is nice. And then if you want to swap over to phase cast, like I was talking about, to proc the dot on a boss, because obviously Fate Grasp in the air is not going to proc the Nova. So you have to switch to something like phase cast so you can actually proc the Nova to proc the dot, then to swap over to a weapon to crit them and do a lot of damage. This, I know, sounds kind of complicated, and it is more of a complicated Amara build, but trust me, once you get the flow of it, it's really simple and it does a lot of damage. Now, one thing I will say, is it worth putting all this much effort into this over just using a generic phase grass build? Probably not, but if you, like I said, if you want to swap it up a little bit and just have some fun with Amara, I would highly recommend trying this one. But since we're already in Mystical Assault, we went over phase cast, I have 3 points of fast hands, then 1 in Do Harm and 1 in Violent Tapestry, just to get down here to the bottom. 3 points Transcend. This is going to be very, very good for bossing. You can just get some more critical hit damage, which is always nice. Then 1 point Ascendant, so we can buff whatever axe skill augment we're using. I like to run Allure, just so whenever I use my axe skill, I'll pull enemies in, then the Nova is going to go off and just kill everything, which is very, very nice. Then in Brawl, we have 3 points of personal space, so we get more damage the closer we are to an enemy. Always good. More damage on Amara is insane. Then finally, in Enlightened Force, this is the new skill tree, and I know when people see this, they are immediately turned off because it's the new skill tree. But trust me, you can make this work even if you don't have this. The main reason I'm just going down this skill tree is to get Clear the Mind. But if you want to put points in Mystical Assault to finish this off, or even put some in Brawl, this build will still work. But personally, I think going in Enlightened Force probably is the best option. So You have more projectile speed and splash damage with heavy rain right here, which can be okay, but we're mainly just use this to get to the bottom. If you ever want to use a splash damage focused weapon, this will be very, very good. But then 5 points of trust yourself, so we get more reload speed, charge speed, and weapon slot speed whenever our shield is broke. So the main thing is we're trying to break our shield, obviously to proc the Nova, on top of us also proccing the Nova to have these Novas going off everywhere. So this is going to be very, very good to get some benefits whenever our shield does break. So 5 points of no mistakes in nature, so whenever we inflict a status effect, which is, if you couldn't tell, going to be very easy with this build, you're going to get 65% bonus melee damage, which again is going to make our status effects do even more damage, and you can just burn the world down. 5 points of burn both in, so whenever we use our axe skill, all the enemies target us, and we're going to get a stacking damage bonus, which can go up to 75% damage. And this pairs really, really well with trusting yourself, because it's going to easily let your shield come off. So whenever you use your axe skill, you can do a Nova, everything's going to start shooting you. You're going to do another Nova. You're going to get all these benefits, and it's very, very good. 5 points of Jolt for Freedom, so whenever you use our axe skill, we get 70% more melee damage. Again, on top, more melee damage, buffing this entire build. Then finally, as I was talking about, clear the bond. For 8 seconds, whenever you kill an enemy, every enemy that ignores this elemental damage resistance, you're just going to do normal damage to them. So you're basically making your incendiary damage just do normal damage to everything in the game, except if you come across a immune target. So if you're doing something like a takedown and they are completely immune to incendiary, that is where that cryo fish slap I was talking about is going to come in, because you got to have something to take them down, because this skill will not allow you to take them down. But literally everything else in the game, this is one of the most broken skills, and taking it just amplifies this build to another level. And if you really want to focus on a single element like incendiary for this build, this is just hands down the best skill to take. Alright, so that's going to do it for the Dragon's Breath Amara build. Like I was saying again, this was a community driven build. So if you want me to make a build on something that you think might be a good idea or something you find interesting, be sure to drop a comment. Let me know. I'm going to try to check through every single one of these things and continue this series. And as always, the full credit is going to go to you if yours is picked and gets put into a video. I know this build kind of went a little off the rails of what was first intended to just be a pure, crit Nova Amara build with that anoint, which it still can work. But I've also gotten, like I said, countless recommendations to just do pure incendiary Amara or a dot damage Amara. So that's why I'm combining all three of those together, putting them in this video, and I hope it pleases all of you. This build is very fun. I would highly recommend trying it out. And if you do, be sure to let me know what you guys think, because I would love to know if you made any changes or if you're just enjoying the build as it is. But that's going to do all for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.